Sorry, folks. I'm actually caught unawares over here because as I walked in with my cases. Anybody has a topic that I can speak on? Anyone like me to say something about something? Uh, what? Tell me. What were you saying? Oh, GM foods. That's fantastic subject, isn't it? Yeah. Oh gosh, that's a long topic. How long have you got? You haven't know. Okay. Anyway, I've just been a lot about Indian food before I came up here. But GM foods, let's take a subject of GM foods and what it actually means. Actually, it's quite confusing what GM means. And a lot of people, especially in Britain now, as our awareness grows more and more and more, we get confused. But let's see what the after effects of GM foods are. The first thing in the world that went GM was in the early 60s when the World Health Organization did a study about the third world countries and the developing world, and they wanted to study the results of malnutrition and why so many countries and why so many people across Southeast and Asia and the African continent were suffering from malnutrition. And they narrowed things down, and it got narrowed down to protein. And it narrowed down to a protein deficiency, a very serious protein deficiency, where people were so poor, they were so impoverished, they could not afford to buy their daily ration of proteins. And so they went through all sorts of things and all sorts of studies to discover what could be a cheap protein option for the poor of this world. And surprise, surprise, soya bean came out as the number one find. And they found that soya bean would give Britain people that desired effect of protein. In India, at that time, the government made a resolution that all the wheat flour, now whether you're the poorest of the poor or the richest of the rich, everybody ate bread of some sort. So you ate chapati or roti or parathas or whatever the Indians ate, and they had to have milled flour. So the government made a rule that every single flour mill in the country would mix 30% of soya flour in their dough, in their wheat flour. As a result, of course, the bread started to get very stodgy and bad, but the people got their protein. Very soon, the world consumption of soya escalated. So much so that they had to start growing crops that would feed the world. America was the first option. Naturally, the Americans found out that the world needed more protein, and they had loads of millions of acres of land that they could convert into soya farms. And America started to grow more soya. And that little bean, which is a traditional bean from Northeast Asia, became the bean of the world. Okay? What it led to was this mass production of soya. And because they were producing so much soya, they wanted the world to now eat soya. And soya became this massive crop and this wonder thing that everybody had to eat. So much soya was produced that the world no longer needed that much soya. So as a result, now we have everybody brainwashed that soya milk is good for you and natural milk is not good for you. You want to start a little rave on that about soya milk?
Go on, yes, yes.
No, okay, anyway. Just to liven you up a little bit. 2,000 years ago or 2,500 odd years ago, the Japanese discovered that unless that little veritable soya bean is fermented, the human body cannot digest soya unless it is fermented, which is how they worked out about bean curd. And they started fermenting soya as a derivative so the body could break it down. Soya milk, your body cannot break down. It's a byproduct of soya in the first instance. The protein is so severe that the body doesn't break down. What happened was a lingering effect took place in people, and they started having serious stomach problems. Serious problems. I have reason to believe, but I don't have 100% concrete proof, but soya milk results in women also getting cervical cancer. I don't know about that, but I've heard that it happens. I've heard that it creates serious internal complications in the human system because that soya protein the body can't break down. It lingers and it sits over there. Milk protein is easier for us to digest. But that is not all. What happened was that because of the greed for soya, you started a long subject over there, young man, a very long subject there. Because of the greed for soya, in Brazil, in the Amazon forest, 100,000 acres of very, very valuable forest is being denuded for the growth of soya. The mafia have got into Brazil. They're killing poor people there and taking away their land to grow soya. Forests are being chopped down, and that Amazon rainforest results in the world's 16% production of oxygen in this world comes from the Amazon rainforest. And we are destroying that every single day by us having this hunger for soya now, because we think it's a wonder meal. Okay, so that's how devastating GM is. It doesn't mean what it does to us, because we don't know what it does to us yet. There are reasons around. But let's just look at Britain now, today, as a small island nation. We have traditional house sparrow. We have our bees. Let's look at just these two creatures. The bee population in Britain has been annihilated by as much as 60% in some cases, and as normal as 30%. The sparrow population is all but non-existent. I recently helped with a program on BBC Two because I worked very hard in London to bring the house sparrow back. And I started this little feeding system so we could get sparrows back. And I have 3 harems, okay? We have 3 males and we have a little harem of each, and it's fantastic to see them chirruping early in the morning. But the reason why the sparrow has gone off the rural areas is because of massive amount of pesticides. The pesticides don't kill the sparrows. The pesticides kill what the sparrows eat. The pesticides kill the wildflowers in which our bees need to pollinate, which the bees need to feed on. When the bees eat flowers that are sprayed with pesticides, you're destroying something that we all love eating, which is honey. It's fabulous stuff anyway. So a knock-on effect of whatever goes on in just our tiny little nation over here, and how much effect that has in the long term. So when you think of the global issue and things like soya, GM wheat, we don't even know how much GM wheat we are consuming. Nobody tells you about it. It just comes. But let's not forget one thing. In the United States, there are millions and millions of acres of beautiful land on which crops can be cultivated. Let's look at one thing that we got from the United States. Corn oil. Okay? Up there, Riverford Farm, they are selling corn on the cob. Please buy your corn, eat it, and tell me how much oil drips down your lips and drips down your cheeks and onto your clothes and stains your clothes, because there's oil in corn. We don't find oil in corn. We don't. To get oil out of corn, you got to add what? You got to add thinners. You got to add solvents, and they are petrochemicals. To release oil from a product where oil is in minuscule quantities, we have to add petrochemicals. You get the oil, fantastic. So America tells the whole world, corn oil is great for you, eat corn oil. How much chemical have we ingested in all those years of eating corn oil? Nobody knows. Now we know that it's not so great for us because it has side effects. Because I produce 5 million tons of corn which is sitting there rotting, I might as well produce oil and feed it to people. Okay, so these are the things that go on in the world. Sometimes it makes you feel bad, but British people, please, the best oil in the world is British. It's cold-pressed extra virgin rapeseed oil. Don't get disillusioned by thinking that only olive oil is the best. Olive oil is great. But if you compare like for like, am I talking too much? Yes. I am talking too much, as usual, yeah? Anyway, so please, the wrong subject. This man has just sparked an interest over here, which is wrong. But anyway, please read, please understand, please try and digest more information. Please don't get swayed away by massive amounts of advertisements and what's good and what's not good. Go back 25, 30 years, how people lived, how we enjoyed food, how the family grew together, and you will find that you have a better lifestyle than you have now. Anyway, thank you very much, sir. Yeah.